Hey guys, welcome back to I do work here lady. In this Ripe Stories video, imagine sitting on the floor of your own company's server room fixing a technical issue when a woman you have never met before storms in and demands to know why you are there. You try to explain, but she cuts you off, unplugs your equipment and calls security to remove you. There was just one problem: she was talking to the CEO. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "New Karen Director Trespasses Me from the Building Thinking I Am Nobody. Fortunately, I am the CEO." Posted on I do work here lady. So I'm the founder and CEO of a managed IT services and data hosting company in Azerbaijan. We are not massive, about 120 employees give or take depending on the season, but we've been growing steadily for the past 12 years. I started this thing out of my apartment with one used server rack and a lot of credit card debt. And now we have got a proper campus. 2 buildings, our own data center, the whole deal. And I'm proud of it. I'm not telling you this to brag, I'm just telling you because it matters for the story. This is my place, I built it, and I know every room, every hallway, every closet that used to be a storage room and is now a server closet. Also relevant, I do not look like a CEO. I know what people picture when they hear that word, and I am not that. I'm in my early 40s and I keep my hair a little longer than corporate types usually do, and my daily uniform is either jeans and a hoodie or jeans and a t-shirt depending on the weather. I've never owned a suit that was not for a wedding or a funeral. Our company culture is extremely casual. We are a tech company. Half my engineers show up in basketball shorts and nobody bats an eye because we care about the work, not the wardrobe. This matters too. So yeah, the day in question was a Sunday. Late morning, maybe 11 AM, we had been having an intermittent issue with one of the fiber connections between our primary and secondary switch in the data center, the kind of thing that shows up in logs as tiny packet loss blips at weird hours, but does not quite trigger an alert threshold. My network team had been looking at it during the week but had not pinned it down yet. I told them I would take a look over the weekend because honestly, I like doing that kind of work. It is why I started this company. I didn't start it to sit in meetings and review P&L statements. I started it because I love the technical side. Getting on the floor with a diagnostic laptop and tracing a problem is my version of going fishing on the weekend. I drove in around 11, parked on the east side of the building near the loading dock. I always come in that way on weekends because it's closer to the data center entrance and the parking's easier on that side of the lot. No traffic and no one to navigate around. I badged in through the side entrance, walked through the empty halls, and let myself into one of the server rooms with my master access card. The building was basically dead. Weekends usually are. Maybe a handful of people working in the NOC, a security guard at the front desk in Building A, and that's really about it. I got set up in one of the secondary server rooms. Pulled a diagnostic laptop out of my bag, grabbed the fiber testing kit from the shelf, and then got to work. I had been at it for maybe 40 minutes. I was sitting on the floor with my back against the base of a rack, laptop open, running tests on the management interface, and checking attenuation readings on the suspect fiber run. Hoodie on because server rooms are cold, earbuds in, listening to a podcast. Probably Ripe Stories on Spotify. Totally in the zone, and then I hear the server room door open. I pull out one earbud and glance up and see this woman I don't recognize. She's probably mid-50s, dressed in business casual, like she's about to lead a board meeting on a Sunday, clipboard in one hand and a facilities radio in the other. Full makeup, hair done, lanyard with her badge prominently displayed, like she wanted everyone to see it. I later found out that she'd been coming in on weekends to do what she called building compliance inspections and write up issues she planned to bring to Monday morning meetings, because of course she was the kind of person basically who invents work to justify their own existence. Let's call her Karen. I didn't recognize her because she'd only been with the company for about 3 weeks at this point. This was our new director of corporate facilities. She had been hired by our COO while I was out on a 2-week trip visiting client sites on the East Coast. The COO had mentioned the hire to me in passing. I had just approved the job posting months earlier and I'd seen her resume but hadn't met her in person yet. The plan was to do a formal introduction at the next leadership meeting, but that hadn't happened yet. So she sees me sitting on the floor with a hoodie, laptop, cables, and I watch her face go through about 4 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, not of me but of the situation she thinks she's seeing, disapproval, and then this sort of righteous determination. You know the look, the "I found a problem and I'm gonna handle it" look. She says, and I quote here, "Excuse me, who are you and what are you doing in here?" Now, reasonable question on its face, I get it. If you don't know who I am and you see some random dude in a hoodie sitting on the floor of a server room on a Sunday, sure, ask the question. So I was not offended by the question, it was everything after the question that became the problem. I pulled out my other earbud and said, hey, I'm just running some diagnostics on a fiber issue we've been chasing. Should have wrapped it up in an hour or so. Friendly, casual, the way I talk to everyone in this building because I genuinely like the people who work here and I don't stand on ceremony. She didn't match my energy though, no. She said, I'm going to need to see your badge. This is a restricted area. You need to identify yourself immediately. I was still sitting on the floor at this point. I patted my pockets and realized my badge was clipped to my bag, which was on the table across the room. I said, yeah, sure, it's on my bag over there. She cut me off. I need you to stand up now. That's when the tone shifted for me. That was not a request anymore, that was a command, and it came with a look of such complete contempt that I actually felt a little flare of anger. She was looking at me like I was a vermin or something that she had found in her kitchen, but I kept it together. I stood up, set the laptop on the top of the rack and said, look, my badge is right there on my backpack. I'm authorized to be… If you're a contractor, she interrupted again, you need to be accompanied by a staff member at all times. If you're with the cleaning crew, you're absolutely not authorized to be handling technical equipment. This is a secure server environment. The cleaning crew? She thought I might be with the cleaning crew. Because of the hoodie, I guess, or because I was on the floor? I don't know what combination of signals she was reading here, but she had decided in about 10 seconds flat that I was someone who didn't belong here, and she was not interested in being corrected. I tried one more time. I'm not a contractor and I'm not with any cleaning crew. I work here. I am… What department? I'm the… What department? I paused. I'll be honest with you. And by the way, guys, let me know in the comments, if you would have been the CEO of that company, what would you have done in that moment? How would you have taught this entitled Karen a lesson? Let me know in the comments, and please don't forget to like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much. There was a part of me that wanted to just say it, just say, I'm the CEO, and watch the color drain from her face, but another part of me, the part that's been managing people for 12 years and has learned to let people reveal themselves before you react, that part wanted to see just how far she was gonna take this, so I said nothing for a second, and she took that silence as confirmation of guilt. That's what I thought, she said. And then she walked over to the table where my bag was, and I watched her unplug the Ethernet cable running from my diagnostic laptop to the rack's management port, just pulled it right out, set the cable down on the table, and like she was confiscating contraband. Do not touch any more equipment, she said. I felt my jaw tighten. That's when I stopped finding this amusing and started getting genuinely angry, not because she unplugged a cable from a port, but because she did not even know what she was unplugging. She had no idea what that connection was. For all she knew, she had just yanked a live production link. You have no idea what that was connected to, I thought. If that had been a live production link instead of a diagnostic port, she could have taken down services for paying clients. She did not know the difference and she didn't bother to ask, and then she pulled out her radio and called the front desk. Security, this is the director of corporate facilities. I need someone to the 3rd floor server room immediately. I have an unauthorized individual who needs to be escorted from the building. There's a trespasser. She said it while looking down directly at me. Not with fear, with satisfaction, I crossed my arms and leaned against a rack and said, you really want to do this? You really want to trespass me? Sir, you can cooperate with security, or we can involve the police. Those are your options. But yes, you're getting trespassed and kicked out. I said, okay, and I waited, and it took maybe 4 minutes for the security guard to get there, the longest 4 minutes of this woman's career, though she didn't know it yet. She spent those 4 minutes standing between me and the door like she was physically preventing my escape. She kept the radio in her hand like a weapon. She didn't ask my name again. She didn't look at the badge on my back that was 2 feet from her hand. No, instead she had made her decision and she was committed to it. The door opens and in walks Boris. Boris has been with us for 6 years. He works weekends by choice because he's going to school during the week. Good guy, knows everyone in the building and definitely knows me. I've signed his tuition reimbursement paperwork personally. Boris steps in, sees me, and then stops dead. And this look crosses his face that I can only describe as, oh no. The director of corporate facilities says, thank you for coming so quickly. This individual was found in the server room without proper identification, handling equipment without authorization. I need him escorted from the premises immediately. Boris looks at her, looks at me, looks back at her, and he does this thing where his mouth opens slightly and then closes again. Then he says, ma'am, this is the CEO. He owns the company. I've replayed that moment in my head probably 100 times, and it never stops being satisfying, not in a petty way, mind you, just in a "the universe has a sense of timing" way. She blinked and I could see the gears turning. I expected a shift, maybe an apology, horror, embarrassment, something, but what I got instead was doubling down. Well, regardless, security protocols require visible identification at all times. That applies to everyone. I'm simply doing my job and enforcing the policies that are in place for everyone's protection. I let that hang in the air for about 3 seconds and then I said very calmly, I helped write those security protocols. Me and our original head of operations built them from scratch when we moved into this building 7 years ago. And I can tell you right now, they don't include disconnecting active equipment, refusing to let someone identify themselves, or calling security on someone without first checking their badge, which was sitting in plain sight on the table next to you this entire time. She started to respond, but I was not finished. You've been here 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and in that time, you did not think to familiarize yourself with the leadership team? There are photos on the company intranet. There's a wall in the lobby of Building A. You did not think to ask my name before calling security, before telling me that I might be with the cleaning crew? She went pale, but she didn't apologize to me. Instead, she said something like, I was following standard procedure for an unidentified person in a restricted area. Any facility manager would have done the same. No, I said. Any facility manager would have looked at the badge on that bag. Any facility manager would have let me finish my sentence when I tried to tell you who I was 3 times. You were not following procedure, you were on a power trip. Boris was very much trying to be invisible at this point. I felt actually bad for him. None of this was his problem. I told her to go to her office. It was the first time I realized she actually had an office already. They had set her up fast and waited for a call from HR on Monday. Then I turned to Boris and said, sorry you got pulled into this, man. We good? He nodded and got out of there. I wish I could tell you that I went back to troubleshooting the fiber issue, but I was too pissed off. I packed up my stuff and drove home and spent the rest of the Sunday alternating between annoyed and baffled. Monday morning, I was in the office at 7:30, talked to HR, talked to our COO, and reviewed the situation. And then I did something I don't do lightly. I terminated her employment effective immediately. Here's the thing, we have a standard 90-day probationary period for all new hires. It's in every offer letter. Termination during that probation period can be done at the discretion of the company with or without cause. However, we had cause anyway, but the probation period made it clean and simple. I don't like firing people, it's the worst part of this job, but this was not a borderline case. And here's where this story gets worse or better depending on your perspective, because once word got around about what happened, people started coming forward. It was like a dam broke. One of our senior network engineers told me she had confronted him in the parking lot during her first week and told him his car was not representative of the company's image and that he should consider parking in the back lot where clients would not see it. His car is just an older model Honda with some band stickers on the back. He drives what he drives. He told me he had laughed it off at the time but was genuinely confused about whether she had the authority to actually enforce something like that. An entire department had received an email from her prohibiting open food containers at desk, citing hygiene and pest concerns. This directly contradicted our company's open kitchen policy, the snack walls, the beer fridge we stock on Fridays. I personally championed that stuff when we set up the office because I wanted people to feel comfortable here, not like they were in a sterile corporate box. Her email had confused the hell out of people, but nobody had escalated it yet because she was new and they assumed maybe things were changing from the top down. She had dressed down a junior systems admin in front of his entire team because he was wearing shorts, told him it was unprofessional and disrespectful to the workplace. This kid was mortified. He came in the next day in khakis and looked miserable. His team lead had to pull him aside and tell him the shorts were fine. We don't have a dress code here. We literally don't have one. I've walked into all-hands meetings in flip-flops. And the crown jewel, the absolute audacity trophy, she had tried to implement a sign-in sheet for the bathrooms. A sign-in sheet. She had put clipboards outside the restrooms on the second floor with a column for name, time in, and time out. One of the admins took them down after about 4 hours and threw them in the recycling bin. Nobody told me about this until after she was fired because apparently people thought it was some kind of joke at first. 3 weeks. She had only been there 3 weeks and had managed to make herself universally despised by everyone while somehow never introducing herself to me or apparently even looking up to who the leadership team was. The running theory is that she came from such a rigid corporate environment that she genuinely could not compute a workplace where the CEO sits on the floor in a hoodie and engineers wear whatever they want. She saw chaos where there was actually a deliberate culture. And rather than observe and learn and adapt, she decided that she was gonna fix everyone. But I guess, guys, instead, she got fixed. Good riddance. And yeah, guys, my opinion about the story is the following. I would say that the story perfectly illustrates why culture fit is just as important as qualifications when hiring for leadership positions. I mean, this Karen clearly came from some kind of traditional corporate environment with crazy hierarchies, formal structures and so on, and she just could not adapt to a flat, casual tech culture, despite also being a bad person probably. Then again though, I mean, with better onboarding, this situation could have been probably avoided, so I feel like the COO should be blamed a little bit too. However, then again, the CEO is definitely a legend and he did everything right. Also, the issue here is not entirely that she didn't just recognize the CEO, it is more that she entered a technical space, made assumptions and escalated immediately like crazy and then physically interfered with equipment she did not even understand. That is a nightmare behavior in an IT environment. And now let's read some comments from Reddit. The first one said, "This was not a misunderstanding, this was just a brand new director walking into a company and refusing to listen, refusing to verify, and touching equipment she didn't even understand, and then trying to throw her weight around. People here are focusing too much on the 'you should have just said you were the CEO'. But OP literally tried to identify himself multiple times and Karen kept cutting him off. Also, unplugging random cables in a server room is insane. A facilities director should know enough to not touch technical infrastructure unless there is an emergency or unless IT tells them to. That alone would make me question her judgment." And another kind of unhinged Reddit comment said, "You're the a-hole and I'm honestly surprised that not everyone else is pointing it out." It's not because she was right, I mean she wasn't. She sounds exhausting and power hungry, but you are literally the person responsible for setting the tone of the entire workplace and you chose to let this escalate because you wanted this dramatic reveal. You admit you could have just said, "I'm the CEO," but instead you stayed quiet. That's not leadership, that is just baiting someone into hanging themselves because you knew you had the power to drop the hammer afterwards. Also, she was 3 weeks into the job. Should she have learned the leadership team? Yeah, she should have. But should she have unplugged anything? Absolutely not. However, she had a point when she complained about a stranger in a hoodie sitting on the floor in a restricted area. In a real secure environment, "Trust me bro, I work here," is not a valid credential. You fired her after one confrontation where you intentionally withheld information because you wanted a gotcha moment. That makes you look petty, not principled. Again, she sucked, but you had every opportunity to defuse this like an adult and instead decided to play CEO undercover boss. And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments and whether or not you agree with the Reddit comments. And the next one is another "I do work here" lady story and it is titled, "I am the manager, will I need to call the police?" So I spent years working in restaurant management and while I never had to call the cops on a customer, I did come close twice. This is one of those stories. Back in the mid-90s, I was working at a Little Caesars Pizza. And by the way guys, let me know in the comments, what is your favorite pizza place? Anyway, one day a customer walks in and I started to head up to the front counter, but quickly noticed that another employee was also heading that way. Knowing that she could handle it, I went back to what I was working on. A couple minutes go by and the employee comes over and lets me know that the woman at the counter wants to see a manager, so I head over to the front and inquire about how I can help her. She tells me that she wants to see the manager. Now, this store had 4 managers, 2 assistants below me, myself, the co-manager and the general store manager. Of the 4 of us, I was the only one on duty that day, so I let her know that I am the manager. Her response was, "No, I want a real manager." I let her know that I am a real manager and that there is no one else there at the moment, but she won't have it. Keeps insisting that I let her see a manager, and after a few minutes of this, she is starting to get really upset. During this exchange where she kept refusing to accept that I was a manager and that nobody else was available, I was finally able to figure out why she was upset. Was her order wrong? Did the employee make a mistake or was she rude? No, nothing like that at all. She was just upset because she was greeted at the counter by a regular employee and not a manager. That is it. That is all that happened. When she came in, she wanted to be greeted by a manager, not some lowly employee. And then she refused to accept that I was a manager. This had her so angry she was getting ready to come around the counter and start a fist fight with me. And at this point, I started thinking maybe I need to call the cops to get the woman out of the store. However, I never did call the police because right at this moment, another employee who was off work that day stopped by to check his schedule. He walks into the store, sees what's going on, and then drags his mom out of the store and sent her away. I didn't know this crazy lady was related to any of the employees, and I never did see her again after that. I did feel kind of sorry for the employee though, because you never really want to go to the place you work and find your mom having a meltdown and threatening to start a fist fight, especially over something so trivial. And the next one is another I do work here lady story. It is titled, "Apparently I cannot be a server if I have blue hair and piercings." So this happened a couple of years ago. I was working at my parents' Alpine hut, where it is indeed rather unusual to run into a metalhead girl with blue hair and piercings. I just had one on my face back then though, yet almost no one makes a fuss about that. Well, except Karen. I was bartending when she came in, looked at me and turned around to where my dad was checking some guests in, walked over to him and asked him why that filthy unemployed punker girl would be allowed back there. He answered, "That girl is my daughter, she's doing your job perfectly fine, and if you have such a big problem with her looks, you are free to leave." Karen went pale and left, and we didn't see her again. And yeah guys, I guess Karen's second name is Judgy McJudgerson from Judgesville. Why would you care so much about other people's appearance? I just don't get it. Anyway, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow. And please don't forget to check out my playlist on the left.